Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a very special episode of The Opener. Today is our 2026 MLB Draft preview, a draft will in which the Rays have the second overall pick, a massive opportunity to get some serious talent into the farm system. At the same time, we're leading the AL East, so very fun days here in Rays land. Have being one of the best teams in the league and also having the number 2 pick. You don't get that too often. So today we're going to preview who the Rays might take in this with the second overall pick. All the names at the top of the board. We will decide who we want the Rays to pick a little later in the episode. We'll talk about a few other names down the board, but before any of that, Will, how are you doing and how are you opening today?
I'm doing great. Like you said, the Rays are in first place. I want to open with the draft, but we're going to talk so much about it. I gotta open. We got the All-Star game coming up. We got 4 All-Stars. Probably could have more, right? If we're being honest. Nick Martinez, Jonathan Aranda, Shane.
Yeah,
but
we might have more. There might be a
the
bunch
home
of
run
guys.
derby. The home run derby is kind of being set up for Junior Caminero to win. If you kind of look at Junior Caminero versus the field, I know Ben Rice is in there, but to me, Ben Rice isn't. I know he has 28 home runs. I know he hit 2 today against the Rays, but I think when you look at like a home run derby kind of thing, he doesn't seem like that kind of player, and that doesn't have a profile. So it's kind of looking like Junior is going to be number 1 seed unless someone out of the blue, like maybe like Bryce Harper, jumps into it, and then you kind of see a little bit. But I'm getting excited for this home run derby with Junior.
I think he is the number 1 seed going in. I think he'll be the betting favorite at the end of the day. Schwarber should do it, right? I mean, it's in Philly. I feel like Schwarber should do it.
I feel like Bryce Harper and Schwarber should be doing it for sure.
Yeah. I think they're both all-stars, so they at least have that already. But yeah, Junior should be the number 1 seed. Jack Caglione kind of scares me a little bit, just because
it's an interesting one.
Hits the ball hard. He hits the ball
hard.
He's
from Tampa.
Did you know that? And he went to UF, so I watched him play in college, and it's good to see him playing a little better in the majors lately.
Yeah,
he can hit the ball hard.
Sometimes
he did it. He was part of the absolute absurd little infield little league home run that the Royals had. I think it was against the Mets recently, and he Caglione threw it to nobody. It was unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it. So
the game takes and gives.
Right, exactly. So I mentioned in the preview, this is a really exciting time, and Will and I have been preparing for, honestly, months at this point for this episode, researching all the prospects, watching them move up and down the board, and in the case of one of them, moving up the board a lot throughout the year. So if you haven't been as tapped in, there's really 3 names that have emerged as like the cream of the crop of this class. So the 3 names are Roch Cholowsky, a shortstop from UCLA, high school shortstop Grady Emerson from Texas, and Georgia Tech catcher Vahn Lackey, who is the name that moved up the board a lot during this year. Kind of more of a late bloomer, but nonetheless, like this is kind of the top tier for the draft. So I want to set the table with a few things here. So the draft, of course, is this Saturday at 1 o'clock. So mark your calendars. The Rays have 4 picks in the top 100. So obviously the second pick, the 33rd pick, which is from the Shane Baz trade, the 49th pick, and the 85th pick. So 4 in the top 100. I think this is really important. The Rays have the second largest bonus pool at $19 million, just behind the Pirates. So a lot of money to work with here. I don't think we need to make like a cheeky underslot play, and I really hope we don't, which, as you'll see as we talk about these prospects, does not seem like the move to do that this year, but just throwing that out there, that could happen. Do you know the last top 10 pick that the Rays had? The most recent?
I think, and I might be wrong, but I think it was Brendan McKay.
That you're exactly right. 2017.
Mr. Two-way player from University of
American
Louisville.
Ohtani.
Yeah.
The American Ohtani. Mm-hmm. Yes. So obviously that one didn't quite pan out. Now, 2007, we had the first overall pick. We took David Price. That one did pan out.
That one was good. I thought you were gonna. I think it was a couple of years after that when we had the number one pick.
I'm going where your head's at. So the next year, so we had back-to-back first-round picks. The next year, the Rays took Tim Beckham with the first overall pick, passing up on the likes of Eric Hosmer, but more notably, the famous one is Buster Posey. And there could be a little bit history repeating itself because as I mentioned, Vahn Lackey's a catcher, and we'll see. So Posey was the 5th pick in that draft. It's not like he went number 2 right after Beckham. By the way, though, Who did we trade Tim Beckham for?
I think I just figured this out. I just looked at it. I don't know. Who did we trade him for?
You know,
I do.
Tobias Myers. Who did we trade Tobias Myers for?
Junior Caminero, baby.
Junior Caminero. So I think if you give us 10 years, of leeway here, or sorry, I guess I should say more like give us 15 years, anything can happen.
So you're telling me Tim Beckham wasn't a bust. Tim Beckham was just Junior Caminero.
I am telling you that. Well, actually, I'm telling you that Tim Beckham was a bust, but Tim Beckham's pick was not a bust. Oh. So, yeah, I mean, that's just really interesting perspective, like looking back on that, 15, almost 20 years later, how that all happens. Okay, a couple other things. So last year, the Rays had the 14th pick, and they went with a prep shortstop, Daniel Pierce, who's been injured kind of on and off. Nothing really too major, but like slowly but surely progressing in low A. But, this is a really common thing, especially, I feel like in recent years, especially taking this, like the best prep shortstops, 18-year-old shortstops, just because they're generally the best player on their team. They're the best athletes. It's kind of a high upside play. And one of the three names at the top of the board is a prep shortstop, Grady Emerson, who we'll talk about in a little bit. I got two other things here, just setting the table for us. So I want to run you through, Will. I think this is going to be really fun. I'm going to run you through like the last 10 or so years of the second overall picks. Okay? And just go through the names here, all right? So last year, 2020, I'm going to go backwards, 2025 back. So last year was pitcher Tyler Bremner to the Angels, yet to really be seen there. Then we go Chase Burns, Dylan Cruz, Drew Jones, Jack Leiter, Heston Kjerstad, Bobby Witt Jr., Joey Bart, Hunter Green, Nick Senzel, Alex Bregman, Chris Bryant, Byron Buxton. Those are the last 12 to 15 years of I missed Tyler Kolek in there for the Marlins 2014, but not as notable as some of the other names. So, point being, big opportunity. However, it's the second overall pick. So we have to wait on the White Sox, and that is going to have big implications because there really is this consensus top three, and whichever way the White Sox go is obviously going to change might change where the Rays want to go. Maybe they had a name as their number one, and the White Sox take them, and they've got to pivot. I'm sure they're prepared for all of it, whatever could happen. This was interesting, Will. The Tampa Bay Times reported, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that Rays head of scouting, his name's Chuck Ricci, and the White Sox scouting director, Mike Shirley, are friendly. Like they're friends, and they spent a lot of time together this year. They've been in touch. So maybe Shirley would do Chuck Ricci a solid and just tell him, hey, here's who we're taking. I don't know why he would do that, but maybe there's a world where they're he knows. Maybe our scouting director knows. And that, I don't know why he would do that, but I just thought that was very interesting.
When you have the first pick, you can kind of just, you're not trading it, right? This is MLB. This isn't like the NFL. You could trade the picks, but at the same time, there's not really much you lose from saying, hey, we're actually going to take Grady Emerson, just so you know. Like, that's who we're going to take, right? Now, if it's the Rays saying, hey, the White Sox, hey, we really like this Grady Emerson guy, the White Sox would be like, they might be something we're missing. Let's take him instead. But, hey, if the White Sox would be like, hey, just so you know, this is what we're going to do, that's good. Actually, the Evan Longoria article that just came out on MLB.com of when they drafted him was actually a little bit of a similar scenario. The Royals had the number one pick, and they took a pitcher, and I forget who his name is. It was back in, I think it was like 2006, but they took a pitcher, and I don't know what team it was that had the pick right before the Rays for Evan Longoria, but that scout called the Rays head of scouting and said, hey, we're taking this person.
Okay.
They gave him a call and let them know. So then the Rays were like, great. They walked into the draft knowing that they were going to get Evan Longoria. So there could be that kind of situation here with the Rays and the White Sox.
That's actually really, I'm glad you mentioned that. The guy's name was Luke Hochevar.
Yeah. Very interesting career. Didn't really pan out as a starter, and then had one season. He turned into a relief pitcher and looked great. And then his career kind of just, I don't know if it was injuries or what, but just kind of derailed a bit after.
Huh. I didn't know the name, so you're locked in. So, okay, so those are a few things just kind of setting the scene, right? Setting the scene here for what kicks off on Saturday afternoon. So we gave you the three names. The consensus top players in the draft are Roch Cholowsky, Grady Emerson, and Vahn Lackey. The best pitcher in the class, who's ranked somewhere just after those guys, is a right-hander from UC Santa Barbara named Jackson Flora. Hard fastball. We'll talk more about him. Really good breaking balls. We'll talk more about him later. And then there's one other name that the Rays could kind of surprise us with, and that is Kentucky shortstop Tyler Bell, who the Rays previously drafted in 2024 with the 66th overall pick. He went unsigned and chose to go to Kentucky, and he's actually risen up some of the boards the past few weeks as the college season ended and the college playoffs ended. He rose up the board a little bit. He's in the top 10. It would be a little bit of a reach, but it could happen. So these are the 5 primary names that we're going to go through today. We're just going to kind of go back and forth and tell you all about these players, their bio, their tools, MLB comps, upside, downside. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we dive in?
No, just kind of what it means for the Rays to have this pick, but also be in first place in the division, right? The White Sox actually are in a very similar boat because they have, they have the first pick and they're kind of going back and forth with the Guardians in first place, but they seem like a playoff team. So you make the right pick. You can either do it to immediately upgrade your team for next year, right? 'Cause usually if it's college, maybe a year, maybe 2 years in the minors. That's kind of rare, but they can make a pretty quick impact. Or you could kind of say, hey, our team is looking pretty good right now. We don't need any immediate impact. We can get somebody maybe a little bit younger and develop him and see where that takes us. So yeah, it's the draft. Probably the most locked in I've been for a draft. I think because the Rays have such a high pick and we've been so locked into the season this year. But yeah, I'm excited to kind of go over just some of these guys and just touch on them a little bit more. You see on Twitter, people are kind of having their own debates. So excited to kind of do ours in a way here.
Yeah, and just really paint the full picture of who these guys are, and what they've done and what they could do. So the top 3 between Roch, Grady, and Vahn have moved around a little bit, like who's exactly 1, 2, 3. So don't exactly take the order that we put them in as meaning like 1, 2, 3, because it was Roch who we are going to do first. He was pretty much wire to wire number 1, and he was actually a high prospect in high school as well, already on the radar as somebody who could go in like a second round. Decided to play 3 seasons at UCLA, and breaking him down. So 6'2", 200 pounds, bats right, throws right. Mentioned UCLA shortstop. He did play some third base his freshman year. Ultimately became their shortstop and basically the captain and centerpiece of the team, right? So he was also in high school. He was also the starting QB for the football team while being this elite baseball prospect. 2-sport athletes are a really good sign for me. I feel like that's a big plus, and obviously playing shortstop and being the quarterback, you have some inherent leadership skills. In looking at interviews, watching interviews with Roch, he's very mature, very kind of like a calm, stoic demeanor about him is how I would describe him, which that's going to maybe come back a little bit in my MLB player comp. One of the notes that I used a shout out to Baseball America. I've been listening to their podcast for a couple months and have been, researching a lot of their stuff just to get, I've looked at a lot of different sources, but pulling certain things out here. So it's rare to see this quality of a college shortstop prospect, just someone who decided to go to college, committed to 3 years, probably could have been drafted sooner. The comparison in terms of that aspect of his resume is Troy Tulowitzki. That's who they said, best college shortstop prospect since Troy Tulowitzki. But I mentioned that he was basically a wire-to-wire top prospect who continued to perform well under the spotlight, right? So what is Roch like? Well, he projects to have 4 plus tools, 4 out of 5 tools. The plus tools are hit, power, fielding, and arm. The only thing that he doesn't do well is run. Now, that doesn't mean he's a lazy or unintelligent base runner. It's just pure speed. He's just not a very fast guy, below average speed. He's not going to steal a lot of bases, okay? However, the speed does not impact him defensively at all. He projects as an above average, maybe even gold glove major league shortstop. He provides solid defense on the field. There's really no concern. He's going to stay at short. I think that's very important. There's no real questions about whether or not he stays at short, right? He provides consistent, quality at-bats, good plate discipline, good mix of power and contact. I think one of the attractive things about picking him here if he falls to us, of course, Will, is that he has a high floor as like just being an average big leaguer, but he also has an all-star level ceiling. You know, a 275 average, 25 homer type of player while playing good defense. You know, that's 4-5 WAR. Just imagine
at a premium
like,
position.
Exactly. Now, you know, like 4-5 WAR is elite, right? But on the low end, maybe he's a 2 WAR, just solid defender, decent bat. Who knows exactly, right? So that's just a couple other things on Roch here. So just giving you some of his college stats, his sophomore year, 2025, was insane. 66 games, 23 homers, 74 RBI. He slashed 353, 480, 710 for a 1.2 OPS his sophomore year. And at this point, he basically becomes the number one prospect going into his junior year, where he was still very good. Batted 320, 452 on base, 636 slug. He hit 21 home runs, so over 20 home runs back-to-back years in college. And then his OPS was 1.1. So it ticked down a little bit, but I think it's important to note that like there's a lot of pressure on him during that year, and he performed very well. Like, still an elite hitter. And I think that's important. Like, you know you're the number one pick. He didn't crumble under that pressure or spotlight. Like I said, he's a very calm, sort of stoic character. And my major league comp for him is Corey Seager. And the reason for that is well-rounded. Now, I would say maybe Roch's contact and plate discipline is not quite to the level of Seager, but very well-rounded hitter. Power, contact, good defense. And this is really where the comp comes in for me is Seager is slow, but that does not impact his defense at all. He's a very good defender. And that's where I kind of felt some connections to Roch, is just like in that style of not like a Trey Turner type of shortstop where you're quick twitch, speedy, just like a really intelligent, smooth, smart shortstop. So that's my player comp. Last thing on Roch. The case against Roch, if you were trying to poke holes in here, right? He has very limited wood bat experience. So a lot of times college players like in the, in between seasons will go play in a wood bat league. He really did not do much of that. I don't think this is a huge drawback, but it's just notable. Teams, of course, have experience projecting players who've never hit with a wood bat. I mean, that goes without saying, but I figured I'd point that out. Some of the, worst case scenarios here is that there's some questions about his mechanics in his swing and just his pure hitting ability. I wouldn't say it's like the most technically sound swing, like another prospect we'll talk about later has incredibly technically sound swing, but it has not impacted his production at all. You can maybe see some adjustments here to his swing, but those are the only real couple negatives I could find digging up a lot. So I know that was a lot, but that's kind of a full profile of Roch Cholowsky.
Yeah, I like him, man. Like you said, he was the, until maybe a week or two ago, he was the wire to wire number one guy that everyone was talking about all throughout the season. So I know it's been, the last week or 2 weeks, Grady Emerson jumped into that one spot, but I think there is a case for sure for Roch to go number one.
Absolutely. And so we'll see if he falls to the Rays. Feels like an absolute slam dunk, great pick. If the White Sox take him, that's where we go into the other two. So next up on the list here, I'm going to pass it over to you, is Georgia Tech catcher Vahn Lackey.
Yeah, so Vahn Lackey, he's really, and you mentioned before, has just blown up this season. He was already a bit on, I think the draft radar, but was not, first round, top three, potential number one pick until this season, where he absolutely took off, right? So some stuff about him. You mentioned the catcher for Georgia Tech. He's ranked right now as a number 3 overall prospect, but I think you can make an argument for any of these top 3 guys that they could be a number 1 pick. And when you think about the Rays having a top pick, and you know that a catcher is one of those top options, it does kind of bring you back to Tim Beckham and what could have been with Buster Posey, right? And there is 100% a world where the Rays are thinking about that, right? We missed out on a catcher once. We don't want to do it again. turn the tables the other way. The Rays number 2 and 3 prospects in their farm are both catchers, right? But they're still a little bit farther. Bodine is just kind of getting in Double-A. Fluelling's still in High A. So when you have a guy coming out of college and a profile like Vahn Lackey, he's not a guy that's probably going to be in the minor leagues very long, and the Rays need catching support, right? And this is pre-trade deadline stuff, right? But they need catching support. So he's by far the best catcher that's in the college class. So as a junior, he had a 397, 519, 772 triple slash with 20 home runs, and just constantly just making these year-over-year improvements, right? So a really nice part of his game is having really good strike zone awareness and the quality of him hitting high-velocity fastballs. And I think when you look at the league, especially kind of the AL East a little bit too, the top pitchers are throwing these high power pitch fastballs, right? So he's able to make it to all fields. Scouts project this guy to be a 25 to 30 home run potential catcher, thanks to just the increased impact and quality of contact that he does make. And his bat's not the only thing that's absolutely amazing. In the last 2 college seasons, he stole 33 bases as a catcher, which is honestly like unheard of. Again, it's college, right? So maybe it's not the same as the majors, but still a catcher that steals 33 bases. And for a team like the Rays that love to run on the bases, is Vahn Lackey going to go to the pros and steal, 20 bases in a season? No, probably not. But just having that in his back pocket, right? Reading pitchers, making jumps, getting in there, that's pretty good. His defense, also something that, especially for the Rays, you have to talk about his defense, right? So he receives the ball well, he blocks well, he moves extremely well behind the plate, left, right, all of that. And on top of it, he has a very, very good throwing arm. They project that he's going to be at least a solid major league defender with a chance to be above average. But just being someone that can hit to 20 to 30 home runs and have good defense is, doesn't have to be amazing, but a solid defender. So knowing the Rays, they always just look, especially in the drafts, who the best player is. It's not always this is what we need for our organization. Vahn Lackey might be that player. And I don't think if you're the Rays, it's a bad thing to have 3 catchers and probably your top 10 prospects for how long we've had this revolving door behind the plate. And I don't think it'd be a bad option, right? So he really checks every single one of the boxes that the Rays would be looking for. He has probably the highest probability, I think, out of those top 3 guys to make an immediate impact on the club, right? Just because he seems like the safest pick. He seems like someone that's just incredibly well-rounded as a player and that can adjust very well to high minor league pitching as well as major league pitching. Now, kind of what you talked about with Roch is there are, concerns really with every kind of player. And I think with Lackey, the biggest concern is coming into this season, scouts viewed Lackey as more of kind of like a hit over power catcher, someone that just made good contact, right, but wasn't expecting that power. So his power surge has been significant and relatively recent of a player. It's not like he was entering college and they weren't sure. They were entering his last season, his junior season, not sure if he was a power guy. So it's incredibly, it could be a change in his swing, could be how he's attacking pitches. But so that is kind of a concern. Is the power breakout real, or is it just the competition he was facing? So that does have questions, right? Is he a 20 plus home run catcher, or is he more of kind of middle of the road 10 to 15 catcher, right? And kind of like Roch, his swing can get a little bit busy, a little extra movement that, in college is okay. But when you get to some elite, real professional pitching, even in the minor leagues, sometimes those extra movements are just going to be too much, right? You have to kind of shorten the swing. Junior Caminero has elite bat speed, but his swing gets busy, right? So he's lucky because he's one of the best hitters in baseball, and he swings the bat so fast and he hits the ball so hard. But if a guy like Vahn Lackey, and I don't know his bat speed metrics, but if he doesn't have a quick bat, he's going to be behind on a lot of these fastballs and he has to adjust. And just overall, like, catcher development does take time. The bat might be ready earlier than his actual position, right? His bat might be good, but his position, like his defense might not be up there yet. He might not be moving quick enough for major league pitches. He might not have the pop time or the throw for major league steals and major league environment, right? So he looks like a rare catcher who offers both floor and a ceiling. So you're talking about an athletic backstop with on-base skills, emerging power, a strong arm, and legitimate defensive values. The question isn't if we draft this guy, is he going to reach the majors or is he a forever minor league player? It's whether he becomes merely just a good everyday catcher, kind of like Nick Fortes, or a perennial all-star, right? So it's kind of what you're looking at and the questions that do come with Lackey. My major league comparison, I see people kind of comparing him to Matt Wieters and Joey Bart, and I'm not really there for that, right? Joey Bart was this, highly touted catcher that was drafted and hasn't, I know he's a top prospect with the Giants, but he hasn't found his footing, right? I know he's with the Pirates for a little bit. Matt Wieters had I'd say a solid career. I think he had an all-star season with the Orioles. But I kind of put Lackey when you're looking at another catcher who was recently drafted back in 2019, number 1 overall, out of college, and how fast he made an impact with his team. And that's Adley Rutschman. You're looking at Adley Rutschman, number 1 pick out of Oregon State, I believe is where he went to.
I think that's right.
And I think he made his debut in 2021. If maybe it was even earlier. I'm not sure, but that's kind of where I see it. A player that when he's drafted, you don't expect him to be in the minors for long, and he'll make the pros, right? But like I said, is he just a good everyday catcher that you're okay with rolling out and still have questions around, or is he a perennial all-star that just elevates the team immensely?
Yeah, I think compared him to Roch has a longer track record of hitting success, whereas Vahn, just took off. Like, there was questions about his hitting, and he just took off more recently. I could look at that one of two ways. Maybe Vahn hasn't even touched his ceiling yet, or maybe that was the peak, and the hitting may not be quite as good in the pros as it was his last year in college. He was always known as a really good athlete and a good defender, and then adding the hitting on top of it that he had this year is just what vaulted him towards the top. I think he's a really, like you said it perfectly, he's a really unique catcher prospect, just with the speed and athleticism that he has. If for some reason it didn't work out as catcher, he has played third base, and he could play a corner outfield too. So there's kind of some fallback options with him as well. I think he's a really cool prospect.
Yeah, I like him. He's neat.
Yeah, and I'm with you with the Adley comparison. Even more athleticism than Adley. We'll see if the hit tools is good, but so that's Vahn Lackey. Now we're going to kind of split here with Grady Emerson. So this is the third of the kind of holy triumvirate, the top 3 in this class. Difference for Grady Emerson is he's a high school player, and he is 18 years old. He did win Gatorade Player of the Year in 2026, so he's the best high school player in the class. 6'3", 185 pounds, bats left, throws right. I found this kind of interesting. He transferred his senior year to play under Rusty Greer, who's a former player who also mentored Bobby Witt Jr. So, there was clearly, this was intentional for him. He probably wanted to go to the draft and, was making intentional moves here to get some more experience, especially under somebody who has experience with a generational player, So, he occasionally rocks the sport goggles, which I like
Respect.
that a lot. So, Will, I think the fun thing with Grady is pretty much no question that he's the best pure hitter in the class. Just the best pure hitter. You watch his swing, and it is just so beautiful and technically sound. It's just a classic, gorgeous left-handed swing at a young age. And his hitting ability is more advanced at his current age than Roch and Vahn's was at the same time. So you can kind of dream on that, right? Makes good contact, uses the whole field. The power, there is some power there. He got second in the high school home run derby, But as far as like in-game power, still a work in progress. He has a little bit more of an all fields approach to him, right? He has a lot of tools here. So the hit tool is really what stands out the most. He's an above average runner. He's a very solid defender. Should be able to stay at shortstop. I don't really see too much like second base or utility risk here. He's got the arm. He should be able to play short. He's hit well everywhere he's gone, like in all of the USA circuit, travel ball circuits, high school. He's just a pure hitter. Like the guy just hits. High school, senior year, batted .532 with 7 home runs, 50 RBIs, and 31 stolen bases. So, I mean, just a
That's not even
like,
fair. That's not even fair, man.
Class, you know, you get out of math class and you're facing this guy, okay? Unbelievable hitter.
If you just took your finals and then you got to go pitch, and the leadoff guy is Grady Emerson.
Yes, he's a problem. he's a real problem. I kind of see JJ Weatherholt in him with better defense and maybe not as much power. We'll see. But like lefty hitter with a really good hit tool, you know, just middle infield. I see JJ Weatherholt. I don't quite see Kevin McGonigal, just because Kevin McGonigal's hit tool is like generational. I don't know if you could say that that Grady Emerson's is that high, Will, but that's kind of the upside. Right. Now that's the thing, right? Is higher risk, higher reward with Grady Emerson. That's the difference between him and Lackey and Cholowsky, right? Like maybe there's more upside in there. Or there's a longer way to go, and maybe it doesn't pan out. I mean, how many times has the best hitter, pure hitter in the class panned out into not really a whole lot in the minor leagues? Many times. So those are some of the things I had. I'm interested to see what you've got on Grady.
Yeah, I'm incredibly back and forth on Grady Emerson, right? Because there is the argument he is the top 3 right now. He's ranked as the number 1 prospect, and it's hard. They say all the time, it's hard to find flaws in his game, right? They compare him to Bobby Witt Jr., right? This great player. And you hear some of those stats that you said, and it's ridiculous, right? It almost seems like he's a college kid that's just dressing up and playing against high schoolers, because it's just he hits and he's so elite, and his glove is so good and he's so smooth. And this could be a guy that the Rays draft that maybe flies through the farm system, right? But the Rays are also very slow with their prospects. You don't know how they're going to do it. Theo Gillen, I'm surprised he's in Double-A. The Rays, I never see them do that of moving players up that
It's got to be like best of the best. Only like their best of the best prospects get that.
It has to be best of the best. But a lefty bat shortstop that throws right, 18 years old, has so much experience. Like I said, he's a Gatorade National High School Player of the Year. That's not something that is just kind of handed out, right? Imagine how many high schools there are all around the country, and this guy's the best one. So there's a reason he is the number 1 pick. And if the Rays take him and he pans out, I guarantee he is going to be the shortstop for a long time to come. I'm sorry to the Carson Williams fans out there. Carson Williams is a second baseman to me now. He's not a shortstop anymore.
We don't even know if he's going to be a big leaguer. Like,
we're not sure, right? He's been playing good. This isn't a Carson Williams episode. I always do that, man. I can just start going on. It's not a Carson Williams episode.
He's a good point of comparison, though. He's a good point of comparison, because what the tool that he misses is the hit tool, and that's the complete opposite for Grady Emerson. Like the hit, it's hard to project that, right? But the hit tool is elite for Grady.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see. I think it comes to, is the White Sox going to take Grady Emerson? And if they do, then that puts the Rays in a kind of, okay, well, do we want Roch, who's been number 1 pretty much all year? Or do we want Vahn Lackey, a catcher that can make an impact pretty quick? I think my big concern with this is taking, even though he was the best player in the country, I do have concern with taking another high school shortstop for the Rays. They just took Daniel Pierce last draft, and I think Daniel Pierce is going to be okay. He's kind of on the same trajectory as like Theo Gillen, right? His first season looking okay, not incredibly eye-popping numbers, but looks good, has some injuries, and then following up that season with a really, really good season. So I'm not sure. I looked this up because I was curious. So since the Rays drafted Tim Beckham, this is including 2008, The Rays have drafted 8 high school shortstops since then in the first round. So it's not throughout the draft. In the first round, they've taken 8 high school shortstop players. So you had Tim Beckham, Jake Hager, Brandon Martin, some names probably never heard of. Now let's keep in mind, some teams have, 3 or 4 picks in the first round, 2 or 3 picks, right? This is not the NFL where it's like, this is our first round pick, we got to go, right? Yeah. Sometimes you have multiple, and sometimes they're later. So Brandon Martin, we got Greg Jones, who didn't really pan out. Then you get to 2021, Carson Williams, who we're not sure about, right? Is Carson good? Is he even a shortstop? Is he finding it? Maybe. Braden Taylor, who got drafted as a shortstop. He's more of a third base, second baseman in the minors, but was drafted as a shortstop. Adrian Santana, who I think the Rays traded to the Pirates, if I'm not mistaken. And then I think they traded him. And then most notably, Daniel Pierce. So it kind of makes me curious if the Rays are just kind of going in this cycle of, all right, well, we need it, but we'll just find a shortstop in the draft. Let's keep trying, and we'll go high school. So if they work out, they're young. But that's what gives me the worry with Grady Emerson. And I think I've told you about this too. Like, this isn't news for you for the first time. Is I feel like they're in this cycle of just taking these high school shortstops because, most times if you take a player out of high school, they are a shortstop, right? Sometimes they're either shortstop, an outfielder, a pitcher, or first base, right? You're not really drafting third baseman, second baseman, catchers out of high school too often. So I get hesitant of it because when would he make an impact on the team, right? Would he jump Daniel Pierce and be ahead of him? Would they be coming up 1-1 together? One is Bowling Green, one in River Dogs, and they just kind of keep alternating. And it just gets me kind of curious if they're just waiting on a miracle for a shortstop compared to somebody like Roch, who is a little bit older, right? He's 21, but he's coming out of college. And you always see, sure, Connor Griffin came out of high school, right? But Roch is essentially, he could have 1 year in AAA and not even a full year and hit pretty good, and he could be up and be our shortstop if it works out, because the Rays don't have a long-term answer at shortstop. And I think drafting an 18-year-old prep high schooler, especially with how the Rays do it, right? The Rays aren't the Pirates. The Rays are very, very slow with their prospect development that are drafted. If they're international signings, they don't take very long for them. They Wander Franco, Junior Caminero flying through the minors. But the draft guys, it's almost like they, you're holding your 8-year-old's hand across the street saying, it's okay, like, we'll do it together. But in reality, they can go. You don't have to hold their hand. And that's what I just don't want to happen. I don't want to take Grady Emerson and in 2 years, we're like, oh, Grady Emerson, he's our number one prospect. We drafted him 2 years ago, and now he's starting Durham finally. I just don't want to be waiting on a player that the Rays need. Like a shortstop, they need. They need a catcher too. But that's where I kind of sit with Grady Emerson. I don't think it's a bad pick if the Rays take him, but I just don't want them to be slow burning him and making sure everything's ready to go, right? Get this guy going. If not, let's take Roch. If the White Sox take Emerson, let's take Roch and possibly have our shortstop ready to go for 2027.
Yeah, I think in defense of Grady, so just like you said, the high school shortstop is such a common pick. It's usually the best athletes. You can transition them to other positions. He is the best of those prep shortstops. And it's not particularly close. There's a couple other guys in the top 10, but I think there's a higher chance that he ends up being successful just because he's unanimously the best, right? And he's an elite hitter already. The swing is, I can't get over the swing. If you have not seen a video of his swing, look it up. I mean, it's so beautiful.
It's nice.
So there's more risk, no doubt about it. I still see a path to the major leagues. Who knows? My kind of downside thoughts on him is a Jackson Holiday. Too early to write the script for Holiday, but just okay, hasn't really panned out. He's a little smaller than Grady is. Grady's 4 or 5 inches taller, but Holiday was known for his hit tool and his plate discipline, and he still has those things, especially the plate discipline. But he's got about a 700 OPS this year, and if that's still a valuable player at the end of the day, that's still kind of a success. But if he doesn't reach that upside, then it's tough. So
Right.
yeah, I think he's in a little different echelon than like a Daniel Pierce was. But yeah, so okay. So those guys are the consensus top three. We're gonna say like before we say who we like, there's a couple other guys that we need to highlight here, just that could go, like the Rays could realistically take here. We've seen recently college pitchers taken early and be impactful quickly. Obviously, you have Paul Skeens. That's just kind of an outlier, far and away, elite, college pitcher. But think of somebody like Trey Savage, who was taken, by the Blue Jays and moved up in 1 year, moved all the way up through their entire system to then pitch in the playoffs and pitch very well. So there can be a lot of value in college pitchers, and the best one on the board this year is Jackson Flora. Tell us about Jackson.
So Jackson Flora is a right-handed pitcher coming out of UC Santa Barbara. So he's ranked number 4 and easily the top college pitcher up here in the draft. Something I think before I dive into all of his stuff is when you look at the Rays and how their pitching is kind of set up and their farm system is, they have Brody Hopkins, who just got bumped off the top 100, and they had Michael Forret, both in AAA, right? So they're kind of knocking on the door, some stuff to work on, but they're getting close. But then, you don't know if Drew Rasmussen's going to be on this team next year. Nick Martinez isn't going to be on this team next year. And Shane McClanahan's getting to that ARP3, so you don't know if he's going to be on this team next year. So the Rays have to kind of work around their pitching a little bit, right? They don't really have a stable rotation, at least on paper yet, for next year, just because of all the costs, right? They should keep Drew Rasmussen. I'd spend money on him. But if we're working in the Rays and being logical, probably not happening, right? The Rays will probably end up trading Drew Rasmussen if he hits all of his incentives because, they traded Tyler Glasnow. They will definitely trade Drew Rasmussen, right? Yeah. So I think that's just something to keep in mind when you have, 2 shortstops and a catcher that are in the top 3, but then you also think about your team needs, right? The Rays usually take the best player, but sometimes you also think about the needs of the team, especially when you have that compensatory, pick later in the first round. So you could also get some other guys. So that's just a little tangent. So some things about Jackson Flora is his fastball is, dare I say, sexy. It's he sits at 96, 97 and just regularly touches 100, kind of pretty similar to like Brody Hopkins, right? This guy that has a great fastball.
Yes, the velo is good. I watched a video by a guy, Lance Brodzowski, who I've mentioned a couple times on the pod. He's like a pitching analyst guru. There are some concerns about the shape of it. It doesn't necessarily Brody Hopkins has crazy ride on the fastball too, and a really low slot. So it's a good velo fastball, but we're not sure about the actual shape of the pitch.
Got it. Okay, I didn't know that. So, in college, you could get away with some of that stuff, right? Maybe not having biggest rise and things like that. And carry.
The college ball also I don't know if it spins more exactly, but the college ball usually gets a little better metrics. I learned this also from Brozdowski.
That is interesting.
It could even get a little worse in the majors as well, in the minors.
We might have to start a little lobby of getting wooden bats and regular balls used in college, so we can get a better idea of some of these guys.
There's something to that.
So Jackson Flora has a 4-pitch mix, right? Like I said, that fastball is the headliner, and then he has a slider, but it has kind of multiple slider shapes, kind of similar like Drew Rasmussen has the sinker, the cutter, and the fastball. But Brian Anderson always sees the cutter, he goes, "That's a slider. That's not a cutter. That's a slider," right?
Right.
So it's kind of the opposite of that, right? He has a couple different slider shapes that, I'm sure if he gets drafted by the Rays, Brian Anderson would be like, That's a cutter. That's not a slider. That's a cutter, right?
Yeah.
He has a changeup, and that is a very good changeup, and that's kind of been the Rays meta lately. Of let's just throw these changeups on Brian Baker, Drew Rasp, Nick Martinez, Shane McClanahan, Griffin Jacks. Let's just pump the changeup, and Jackson Flora already has a changeup that you work on a little bit, but looks pretty good. So having that 4-pitch mix views him more as a starter rather than moving to the bullpen, right? That some other guys that maybe only have 2 pitches ready to go are kind of destined to be a bullpen kind of guy, right? You really can't have 2 pitches in the majors. So his 2026 season was nothing short of dominant, right? He posted a 1.06 ERA, 133 strikeouts, and 102 innings, and he won the National Pitcher of the Year. So if you're asking me, I'd say that's pretty freaking good
Yeah.
of a season to have. And of course, you win the National Pitcher of the Year, and you're going to get bumped up to the highest ranked pitcher in the draft. So, if you're looking at the Rays, this is the kind of arm that the Rays have loved for years. You already have that power fastball. You already have this pitch mix, right? We can just finesse you a little bit. We can get you
Right.
that rise on your fastball. We can
Right.
maybe, adjust your sliders to kind of hone it down instead of having multiple different variants of it. Maybe one really good and maybe a slider that kind of goes off a little bit, or change that into more of a cutter. And then you have the changeup, like I said, that the Rays love. So he has a big frame, like I said before, right? I thought I had his height.
I think he's 6'5",
I think he's like
6'5" or
6'4",
6'6".
6'5",
Yeah.
6'4". Yeah,
He's
so
tall.
he's a big guy. You look at kind
Yeah.
of like Mizorowski's a pretty tall guy too.
Yeah.
He's got
He's not really lanky. He's like pretty built.
yeah, he's a little more chunked. Like I said,
Well,
he
I
has
guess
multiple
maybe he is a
breaking
little
shot.
lankier. They got him at 6'5", 205. I had more of like a 220 read, 230.
But dare I say, the Rays pitching lab, like I said, would be drooling the opportunity to optimize his
Yeah.
slider and changeup. He already has a fastball. They can easily give him some extra rise on it. The Rays they know what to do. And you already kind of see the slider and the changeup. And the Rays, Kyle Snyder probably is looking at this guy saying, hey, if there's a world that you want to take this and maybe not go with these top three players, this guy will be a major league arm. So obviously, every player coming to a draft, it's not like Paul Skeens as a pitcher where it's like this guy's just ready to go, right? So he's just not finished as a pitcher. So his stuff's elite, but his actual pitching ability is still raw in his arsenal. He relies really heavily on his just physical gifts, right? The fastball was his best pitch, and when you're pumping 97 plus in college, you're going to get the swing and misses because you're facing against a guy that is in, for some reason he's taking astronomy in his freshman year because it's an elective class, right? And now he has to go up against you. It's a real thing that happens. So scouts have noticed just occasional head movement and fall off in his finish when it comes through. Again, they're not like big flags, but things to monitor as he goes to pro ball, right? All this extra movement. I mean, you see Ian Seymour, he doesn't even look at the plate when he throws it, and Shane McClanahan at least used to. He doesn't do it as much now, but he used to launch himself off the mound. So, there's some stuff, like some extra movement he has. And like you mentioned before, the fastball doesn't really have that like rise and carry, which is something that you'll probably want instead of having that dead hone fastball. So of course there's always risk when it comes to pitchers, right? Especially when you're pumping 100. So, it just kind of carries the extra risk compared to a catcher, compared to a shortstop of, hey, we could draft this guy, but who knows if in AA or AAA he's going to blow out his elbow and he needs Tommy John, right? So, kind of like Brendan McKay, Brent Honeywell, these are two pitchers that the Rays had that were top prospects and just absolutely just blew through their elbow in the minors. Now, Brent Honeywell, World Series champion. Got to give him his flowers.
World Series innings eater.
Yeah, and he threw the screwball. I loved it in MLB The Show. So, I think Jackson Flora, when you're actually looking at pitchers, obviously he has the highest pitching ceiling in this class, right? When you combine that 100-mile-per-hour changeup or 100-mile-per-hour fastball, a plus changeup, and different slider looks, plus his 6'4", 6'5" frame, you're talking about someone the Rays can develop into, ideally a number 1 or number 2 starter, right? And you're not concerned that this guy might be a bullpen arm. Just the risk with it is just he's simply a pitcher, and pitchers just naturally carry more risk, right? If we draft Grady Emerson and he gets a hammy issue, that's not the biggest deal. He's out of maybe a couple weeks, right? If you draft a pitcher and he has a flexor strain, rotator cuff, elbow, something like that, there's legitimate concerns about their future. So I think that's just always something that you look at when you think about drafting pitchers.
Yeah, I think we would know if he was like injured right this second. He wouldn't be up here. But you're right. I mean, that could happen at any point. I think to me, it's just not as exciting of a pick. I don't think the Rays take him. I really don't. He is the best pitcher in the class. I feel like the Rays can do better off taking some pitchers, a little later on, and just taking guys that may not be as polished or maybe in high school and try to develop them that way. I don't have as much faith in the Rays' ability to develop pitchers like biomechanically. I have faith in their ability to teach them how to pitch and like, here's your best pitches, use this. And I feel like a lot of the Rays pitchers who are notable and who are successful did a lot of their development in other organizations, and the Rays make a couple of tweaks, and then all of a sudden they're a major league pitcher. Like, I'd rather let the Guardians develop Jackson Flora and then trade for him in a year. Not the Rays are good at pitching development. I just think like from the ground up, I'm not sure. It wouldn't be a ground up exercise with Flora. Like, he's a good pitcher.
That is a good argument. I mean, they traded for Michael Ford. They traded for Brody Hopkins. They traded for Drew Rasmussen.
Shane Baz.
Tyler Glasnow, Shane Baz, yeah.
Not Shane McClanahan. That is homegrown talent.
Not Shane. Yep.
Yeah.
From
Drew
USF,
I mean, like, I really think that's where a lot of our best pitchers have come from. So I don't think he's as fun of an option, but important to note, because like it could happen. We could shock the world and take him. I'd be a little pissed off, but we could. Okay. So real quick, this is a wild card guy that like if the Rays take this guy, I'm gonna be the most disappointed. I'd rather they take Jackson Flora, and that is shortstop Tyler Bell. It's not because he's a bad player. He's gonna go most likely in the top 10. Switch hitting shortstop out of Kentucky, 20 years old. Mentioned before, the Rays had already drafted him once before. The reason I don't really love this is I feel like that would be sort of an underslot play, pay him a little bit lower bonus and then save the bonus for later. This does not feel like the draft to do that in for me, because the top 3 is so are really strong, and it would just be such a lame duck to me. I mean, if they picked him, I hope I'd be wrong and he becomes a superstar. So just quick overview of Tyler Bell, because the Rays have been connected with him and they could take him again. He's a switch hitter that is good from both sides of the plate. Not any risk of having to really turn into just a lefty or just a righty. He hit 343, 510, 608 with 9 home runs in the sophomore season at Kentucky. Not a ton of power, good plate discipline, sometimes too passive is kind of what I read in some articles. Just a little too passive at times. Reminds me a little bit of Taylor Walls, switch hitting shortstop that has good plate discipline.
Oh, then they should take passive. This
guy. I know, but yeah, which is funny. So he projects a little more as a utility guy compared to Taylor Walls, who's the greatest defender in human history. So he could stay at short, but he also has a little bit more utility risk than someone like Roch Cholowsky or Grady Emerson, which I don't love that quite as much either. The Rays can pump out utility guys like it's nobody's business, so I'm not super worried about that, honestly. So, like I said, I just feel like this would be like an underslot move where they're trying to pay a little lower bonus and get somebody that they might like a lot and who could be good. I just don't see the upside in him compared to the other names that we've talked about. I don't think he's a bad player, and he's going to be taken high up in the draft, but we had to cover him because there's a real chance that the Rays take him, so he projects to be a decent hitter, decent defender, maybe utility guy, and the Rays like him.
Yeah, I mean, kind of in a way I see it is, if Tyler Bell was one of the top 3 players in the draft, then the Rays are probably taking him. But I think, the fact they drafted him and he said no does kind of leave a bad taste in your mouth a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
If you're the Rays, it's like, man, we drafted this guy. You said no, and now he's like,
and it was a high pick too, 66.
Right. So it wasn't like a 6th round pick. You're getting chump change, but I think Tyler Bell does have some stuff that the Rays like. Right, the switch hitter is something that the Rays always like from a shortstop. Wander Frank was a switch hitter. Taylor Walls is a switch hitter. It just gives a little bit more variety in the lineup, and you kind of work with it. But this just doesn't seem the draft for the Rays to do that. Right, you have Grady Emerson, who I'm not super sold on, but you have him. You have Roch, who is the consensus number 2 pick, according to MLB or MILB.com. And you have Vahn Lackey. And, if you want to catch you have just a lot of other options to take him. Even, I would take Justin LeBron before I took Tyler Bell, right? It's just, to me, Tyler Bell's going to be drafted high. He's a first-round pick, probably going in the top 10 to 15 picks. But at the same time, there's no reason to get cute, no reason to get fancy. Hey, we're going to take this guy, Tyler Bell. We still really like him. And you miss out on one of the top talents of the draft. So, I mean, good luck to him. But he's not going to be wearing a Rays jersey, at least when they call his name.
Well, That's why we covered him though, is because like he might. I put it at like a 5% chance, but like he could.
There is a world that the Rays still like him, but again, I'm not too sure if they would take him. Who knows?
Yeah, that's what we'll find out. So we've gone through all these guys, and I want to know, if you had your choice, pretending like the White Sox were not ahead of us, who is your favorite?
So after talking about all these guys, I know I touched pretty hard on Vahn Lackey and his ceiling that he has and how good he'd fit in the Rays. I'm going with Roch. If we have any pick between the three, I'm going with Roch Cholowsky. I think he's the one that the Rays really need a winner at shortstop. After Carson hasn't panned out, right? After Wander Franco and Taylor Walls is kind of just this elite fielding, just stopgap, though. The Rays need some stability at shortstop. And to me, drafting Roch is kind of like, hey, this is our shortstop, right? This guy is going to develop for maybe a year, and we're going to get him up here, and he's going to be our shortstop. So if the Rays have any pick they want, I'm going with Roch Cholowsky. I know he had some issues in a couple strikeout issues and stuff towards the end of the season and in league play or in the tournament play, but I'm still kind of sold on this guy.
I'm on the exact same page. I want us to take Roch Cholowsky. I think
we didn't talk about this before, I swear.
We did not. We did not.
We did not.
I'm on the exact same page. I just think it's the best combination of floor and ceiling. And you could take the risk and take Grady Emerson, and I'm okay with that. And if we take Vahn, I think he's like my favorite, if that makes sense, but I want us to take
kind of
Roch.
is my favorite too. Yeah,
right?
I'd be excited if the Rays took Vahn Lackey.
Yeah, I would too. And I think any of the three. To be honest, as long as it's not Jackson Flora or gosh, I'm already forgetting Tyler Bell, I'd be pretty excited. If it is those guys, I'm sure we'll understand why. So okay, I mean that's great. So before we get out of here, the draft does go longer than the second overall pick. There's maybe too many picks, but anyway. So we got a couple guys maybe for later to note. I mean, basically I put this question on, what do I expect for the rest of the top 100 picks? Answer, who the hell knows? It gets a lot harder to know. You're not
once you leave the top 5 or top 10, you're completely lost in it.
And I also want to say this, for those people who are here, still listen towards the end of the episode, expectations for any player outside of the first round, if they make it to the big leagues and have a decent impact, that is a win. Or if they're part of a trade that gets you somebody, that is a absolute win. So here's just a couple of guys that are out there. One of them is Caden Wechter. Doug Wechter's son is a pitcher, high school pitcher, pitched for Jesuit, Tampa Bay area. He could go anywhere from the 30 to 60 range is sort of the projection, where the Rays do have 2 picks, 33 and 48, I think, or 49. So
something like that.
If the Rays want to keep it in the family here, so to speak, they could go with Wechter. He's not necessarily an elite high school pitching prospect, but obviously good, ranked around 50th or so. I got a name that, we haven't shared this ahead of time. So we're talking about guys who maybe could be taken in that second round, 33, 49.
Late first, second,
yes,
early second kind of thing.
So I found a guy. I poured through a bunch of guys in this range. I like college right-handed pitcher out of Mississippi, Taylor Rabe. And I'll tell you why. Very good, great 6'5" righty. Does that sound familiar to someone we talked about? Taylor Rabe, Rabe.
Tough life, man.
Yeah. So does this sound familiar though? 6'5" righty with a great fastball, hard fastball, just like Jackson Flora, right? And he also has an extremely high grade cutter and slider. This is literally what the Rays do in the minor leagues, is get guys with good fastballs and good sliders/cutters and make them throw it in the zone. He fits the Rays. It would be just like a glove. He would put it right into our minor league system, and he would do exactly what the Rays would want him to do. So now, here's the other last piece for him. Room for development on the changeup. What have the Rays figured out this year? how to develop changeups.
Just throw a changeup.
I literally think this guy is the perfect fit. So right-handed pitcher Taylor Reid is my second, that kind of second or third pick to keep your eye on for the Rays.
I like that. That's a good pick. Tough name. Good pick though.
Yeah.
I found a guy and I didn't find him. I was on X. I still call it Twitter. I'm always going to call it Twitter. But
yeah.
I was on Twitter. I deserve to call it that. And I was going through and I saw this one player and someone mentioned, hey, the Rays could take this with their second first round pick or early second. He's a high school shortstop, right? So if you still kind of want a shortstop that's in high school and you go with Roch, you could take this guy and develop him. Taj Marchand.
Okay.
He's a right-handed hitter. Right-handed, throws right. He's only 17, so he's actually kind of on the younger side of his draft class.
Wait. Are you talking? Is this Marnacchio or how?
No.
Or
Taj Marchand. So if you're looking at the top ranking, he's ranked 37 in this draft class, a high school shortstop.
Yep.
He was actually born in 2008 when the Rays went to the World Series.
Jesus.
So that's kind of crazy to think about. The Rays are drafting these guys now. He has a really strong arm and has a pretty good hit tool, right? I think his biggest struggle is he kind of lunges forward at the plate and he hits off his front foot, but he can still keep his hands back and did really good in the showcase circuit. And I think that's why he kind of boosted up because he went to that showcase. They say, if he smooths it out, he could be like a 25 homer player, right? If he turns on kind of more pitches. But when I kind of look at this guy, it's the Rays can take him if they still want a shortstop to develop, right? They could take Roch and then still take that high school shortstop that they love to take and just kind of develop him. Maybe he turns into a third baseman, maybe he's a second baseman, but in the end, he's pretty good defensively. He gets the ball out pretty quick. Like I said, his arm strength was a 60 arm. That's his highest trait, was his 60 was his arm. So I can kind of see if he did. He clocked up 92 miles per hour on the mound.
Oh, okay. Maybe you can.
Yeah. So
at 17?
At 17 years old. So I think this could be a guy where the Rays, if they go with Lackey or if they go with Roch, that they're going to take this guy next because they still want that shortstop they can develop and kind of move through the system. That could be, like I said, second baseman or third. It's just a good infielder to have in their farm.
Yeah, and I think that's a great call. A great call. I think once you get beyond that, I expect, like the Rays usually do, to take an absolute shitload of pitchers. Just like they're going to take 15 pitchers after this, and they're going to throw their darts in the dartboard. And
dare I say a boatload of left-handed pitchers on top of that.
We do need left-handed pitchers as well, so that's obviously valuable. Other teams will want that too. So at the end of the day, it comes down to this second pick. The Rays have this opportunity that they haven't had in a while, and we could be sitting here in 2 or 3 years, and who knows where we're at. But as it stands today, there's 3 great options for the Rays. I want to know, for those listening, who you want the Rays to pick, because once we do get that pick and we get the information on Saturday, of course, we'll have another pod talking about the decision. Do you have anything before we close up shop here? This was a lot of fun.
No, I got a closer for you if you want to hear it. So
I want it.
It's long. We should be celebrating. It's Longo's legacy weekend at the Trop. Right. It feels good. He's going to get his number retired, a couple ceremonial things, which no one's wore his number. It's been retired pretty much, but now it's official. The first real Rays number retired of a Rays, there was Wade Boggs, and it didn't really make sense to retire his number. I think it was just to kind of give the Rays some legacy. Yeah. But, they had Don Zimmer's number retired, but he never played for the Rays, and then 42 is retired all through baseball. So this is the first one where the Rays, homegrown player, so good, and they retire his number. So I got a question for you.
Okay.
Longo, his career is done. He's never playing again. Is Evan Longoria a Hall of Fame third baseman?
I want to say yes, but no. Unfortunately, he's not. I think, what did he get? Somewhere around like 30 to 35 WAR, 27 WAR, something like that.
I'll tell
see if you can pull that up. Let's here.
See. Evan Longoria, career WAR. You're a bit off, buddy. 58.9 career WAR.
Are you serious?
Rookie of the Year, Rookie of the Year, 3-time All-Star, 3-time Gold Glove with the Silver Slugger, just south of 2,000 hits, 1930 hits, 340 home runs, 260 batting average. One number I really like, let me get this ad out of here. He finishes with a career OPS of .804, and I would say that's pretty good considering his like down years. Right, once he went to San Francisco, it was pretty tough getting that back up. It is, when you look at the WAR, it's that's why I think as a third baseman, he does have a chance because of his defense. His defense was he finished with a .966 career fielding percentage, only 160 errors in his whole career, 3-time Gold Glove, and he finished with our favorite stat, because this is the stat that makes Taylor Walls good, is his defensive WAR. He finished with let me see if I can get it here. He finished with a defensive WAR of 13.8 in his career. So he had a couple of down years, and it was very much towards the end, but depends how you want to rate defensive WAR. But
wow,
it's kind of weird how you look at it, because you're not really thinking that it's a 58.9 career WAR, and then you hear that number.
No.
And you're looking at third base Hall of Fame players, and I think there's an argument that could be made. For reference, right, Jose Ramirez actually has a 60.2 career WAR, which is kind of interesting. I think it's because the stolen bases is a pretty big one that boosts it for him. He has over 300 stolen bases. Longo had 58 stolen bases, so that boosts it up a little bit, I think.
Not a runner. Yeah.
Yeah, not a runner.
Now that I know that it was that high, that opens my mind a little bit, because like 50 WAR is kind of like the threshold, the unspoken sort of threshold for a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I just don't. I still say no. Unfortunately, like, he has the Gold Gloves. Highest he ever finished in MVP voting was 6th. He has the Rookie of the Year. That's great. There was a force. I mean, his count as Rookie of the Year. Let's see. It's 23, 24, and 25 seasons. He went 7 WAR, 8.2 WAR, 7.2 WAR. That's pretty special right there. He had a 5.8 WAR season in 27. He was good with the Rays, honestly. Once he got to the Giants, he was not good.
He still had positive WAR season. It wasn't as great, but he still had fine seasons. I think he's one of those. You kind of look at 2020 now, and you feel bad for some of these players because they were just aging in the season. They didn't really get a season out of it. So, like, Longo, a player that was towards the end of his tenure, only got to play 53 games. He played 53 out of 60 games, and he still looked good out of those 60 games, right? But then that adds just that extra wear of a season on somebody's body. So I think if you take out the COVID year and he got a full season out of that, I think his numbers would look a little bit different. But I'm a Rays fan. I'm biased, right? I think I would love to say that Evan Longoria is I think it would be good for baseball to put him in the Hall of Fame for the Rays. The Rays don't have anybody in the Hall of Fame, so maybe toss our guy a bone. He deserves it, right? He deserves it.
I hope I'm wrong. I don't think he has the accolades. Now, he's got the WAR, that's great, but just like besides Rookie of the Year, no MVPs. He had the Gold Gloves, that's great. That is good, right. Notable. No MVPs, no World Series title. Almost.
2-time World Series runner-up.
I did go to a game in that Rays Phillies World Series that I don't remember much of as a kid, and it was, I think, the only game we won. I was actually there, and all I remember is that Phillies rotation was just impossible. Like, Roy Halladay, I think it was Cole Hamels, and
it was Cliff Lee,
somebody else. Cliff Lee, maybe. It was Cliff Lee.
He might have been. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to see him. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, let's hope so. Well, that's great. Well, look forward to the draft this weekend. We'll be back soon to break down everything that happens there, all the Rays picks, and we'll see you soon on the opener.